Can everyone hear me? Okay. I know everyone is actually waiting for lunch, so I'll try to wind up in maybe 20-25 minutes. No problem. So the topic that we have is basically test automation, and this is primarily using robotics, microcontroller, and analytics. So a lot of you would have heard about test automation being done for digital applications, even for legacy applications. It's actually a mix of all these. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to give you a context on why this is important or what is the challenge currently, what are the solutions that we can apply, and then talk about some of the benefits. So basically, I'm taking retail as an example. So you look at today's retail industry, you could see that there's a lot of investment that has gone on into digitalization or digitization of retail. There's a good amount of websites that you can see which are e-commerce related. So you can actually see that maybe a lot of us would actually do shopping with an Amazon or a Flipkart. But if you look at the industry statistics, so if you look at the North American statistics that was published by Forbes a few years or a few months back, it shows that only 90% of sales that happens is still through stores, only 10% happens online. And even when it comes to grocery, it's even worse. Only 2% of folks in North America through an online mechanism or through an e-commerce store. So it's very important to actually look at the customer satisfaction or the set of customers who are actually using stores as a primary mechanism of purchase. And very recently, there was a report that was published by American Customer Satisfaction Index or survey, which shows that the customer satisfaction levels have actually come down for retailers or customers who are actually visiting retail stores. So there are two things that needs to be considered. One is basically when you look at the customer satisfaction from a store point or a retailer standpoint, it's primarily the quality of service that you get in a point of sale. Assume that you've gone into maybe a store at Walmart. You primarily look at whether I'm able to purchase all the items that I have in my cart very easily. Am I actually able to pay on time? And you also look at the speed at which the transaction happens. So these are very important parameters. So based on this, we are actually looking at test automation as one of the solutions that can actually help you to improve your overall customer satisfaction. And also it helps you to improve the quality or the speed at which you're actually making deliveries to production. So we'll just talk about test automation trends before we get into the challenges. So if we look at test automation, it has been there for 2 decades. Maybe when I was studying in college, I used to see tools like Rational in the market. Now it has become much advanced. So as per the latest statistics from Forrester, you also have customers who have achieved more than 80% of automation. At least 14% of customers whom they surveyed have achieved more than 80% of automation in their landscape at an enterprise level. You can also see that there are customers who are actually spending a huge amount of what I call time and effort in building solutions that are built on AI and machine learning. But at the same time, there are a lot of organizations who have taken up digitization, who have decided to adopt Agile and DevOps, but we still have challenges with respect to automation. So you don't actually get the real benefit of Agile or DevOps if you don't actually have enough test automation coverage within your landscape. And it's even a bit worse in the retail segment, primarily due to the challenges that you have with hardware. If you look at the consumer products or the distribution side, the automation levels are actually a bit low than what you would actually see in a banking domain or maybe in a health insurance or a healthcare domain. So these are some of the trends that we have seen. So moving on. So if you look at a typical retail store, maybe a store in the US, you can actually see a lot of devices that are actually available. For example, in maybe a good number of stores, you would actually see mobile self-checkout solutions where you can actually scan items and actually make purchases through mobile. You also have self-checkout machines, not very common in India. You can actually do purchases on your own. In some stores, you basically see fuel pumps where you can actually make purchase of fuel. You also have ATM machines in some of the stores. So these are some of the equipments that you would actually see in a store. So why I'm highlighting this is basically when you're dealing with test automation, if you want to automate testing of point of sale, you actually have to deal with different types of devices that you might see in a retail store. It's not just devices. You also have various flavors of point of sale software coming into the market. So you actually have Toshiba, which actually has an operating system called 4690, which was actually initially called IBM 4690, which is one of the most popular operating systems for point of sale. And you have new players like GK Software. You also have NCR, PCMS, Wincore, all these players in the market. At least I would say that there are 50 players in the market who actually has point of sale products. So the challenge that you might see with this is basically, one is basically the flavor of the product that they apply in point of sale store is going to be different. At the same time, the operating system on which it runs is also different. For example, NCR runs on Windows, whereas if you look at Toshiba, it actually works on their own operating system. So you need to actually consider the various operating systems as well as the applications when you're actually trying to automate point of sale. And moreover, if you look at the other devices, so you might be familiar with some of these devices when you visit a store. So if you look at the devices that you actually have debit readers. Most of us actually use, after the currency ban in India, most of us were used to making purchases through debit card readers. We also have receipt printers in most of our Indian stores as well. You also see scanner scales where you actually weigh your item. You also have barcode scanners using which your cashier at the point of sale counter would actually scan your items. You also have displays where you can actually see the amount that you have paid or that you have to pay. And then in some cases, you might have also seen handheld scanners being used by associates at the store to actually take account of items that they have on their shelf. So the simple example is some of the devices that you might see, but this has to be considered when you're actually doing test automation for a point of sale system. So now if you look at the tools that are available in the market, there are at least 50 or 60 different automation tools, both open source based as well as commercial based tools that actually helps you to do automation. But any of these tools that you see here doesn't actually support point of sale automation. Maybe Tricentis is the leading player in the market in the test automation space. It's actually a company that got funding for around $160 million just for a test automation tool. So even with that kind of a tool, you cannot actually automate a point of sale system. You have HP or Micro Focus, which was actually one of the best tools in the market. You have Visual Studio from Microsoft. You have open source tools like Selenium and Appium, but none of these tools directly supports the automation of point of sale. That's why it's very challenging, and that's why many customers have not achieved success in automating point of sale. And even when you're doing testing, whether it is an automated testing or manual testing, it's better to do testing aligned to what a customer might do in a store. For example, you can actually use simulators if you're actually using an old type of card, not a chip and pin card, maybe the magnetic strip cards that we had in the past. You can actually use simulators for that, but now since chip and pin is there, you cannot try that out. You also have to replicate scenarios where you're actually scanning a barcode, just like how a cashier would do it. Or you might also have to simulate scenarios like weighing an item. So you have to actually replicate these scenarios when you're actually doing a test case design or when you're executing your test.